Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to, pull out the key insights from the sources you share. And today, wow, we're diving into some really fundamental stuff. Our mission, really, is to explore how your core beliefs, your concepts, act like this unseen operating system, almost like CSS code for your reality,
Yeah.
filtering everything you experience. We're going even deeper into what we call sanctuary concepts, those really powerful, often hidden boss-level beliefs, the ones your ego holds so dear they basically become untouchable truths. And what's really fascinating is how these aren't just ideas floating around, they're actively shaping your world, often without you even realizing it.
You've absolutely nailed the core point there. The power of these deep-seated beliefs is, well, it's remarkable, especially because they feel like the very foundation of your perceived reality. They feel like you. So when these sanctuary concepts get challenged, it can trigger a really profound, sometimes, uncomfortable reaction. Understanding this mechanism is honestly key to unlocking new levels of awareness and ultimately experiencing more freedom in how you perceive and create your reality. This is exactly what we explore through the zero-point field, or ZPF framework. It's a system that kind of integrates ancient wisdom with modern insights to help us see these underlying patterns.
That's a perfect way to frame it. And to make this really concrete, let's unpack something we saw recently on social media. This is where it gets really interesting. We saw a, let's say, prominent female spiritual leader,
Yeah.
and she expressed this really strong aversion to a well-known male spiritual leader. He'd been discussing things like non-monogamy, having children outside of traditional partnerships,
Okay.
that kind of thing. And my first thought was, wow, why such an intense reaction? What specific concepts were getting ignited there, in that community to cause such a stir?
Oh, it's a classic example, isn't
Yeah.
it? If we connect this to the bigger picture, that intensity, it wasn't just about, like, information overload or a simple disagreement. It really hinted at a deeper discomfort, what we in the ZPF framework sometimes call an energy thorn.
An energy thorn.
Yeah, so the question becomes, was this male leader's message seen as a kind of spiritual justification of ego or desire? Or did it maybe look like he was operating from unintegrated sexual energy? Or perhaps more fundamentally, did it just clash head on with a really deeply held belief about sacred sexuality within that particular spiritual circle? The whole theme of sex, it often really vigorously stimulates what we call the illusion of separation.
Yeah.
It challenges identity so profoundly and reveals just tons of these conceptual traps because it touches on things that are so primal, so heavily conditioned for most of us.
And it really seemed to me, just watching from the outside, that even though this female leader often talks about shadow work, her own unintegrated concepts were just clearly triggered. Her ego OS, reacted reflexively. It suggested a very strict, deeply held view on the topic that went way beyond just, like, simple observation or disagreement.
And this raises a really important question for all of us, really. Spiritual practitioners, maybe even more than others sometimes, can be particularly susceptible to these unintegrated traps.
Mm-hmm.
An integrated response, one coming from true awareness, would likely be, well, pure observation, a kind of quiet internal processing, but a public, strong reaction that often suggests a justice OS, a shadow aspect of the ego, is active.
Right, the need to correct something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. The very act of reacting can become a clear map to one's own unintegrated sex energy, for instance. Often, rejecting free sexual expression can indicate suppressed energies within the self, especially for those who champion a very secret or serious approach to spirituality. The automatic trigger mechanism we see here, it follows a pretty clear pattern. First, you have an unintegrated concept, maybe something like sex is sacred and must be self-sacrificing. Then it meets an external stimulus, like hearing about polyamory, having children, proudly.
Yeah.
Then the ego OS activates, shouting, "What? That's not integrated at all. That's wrong."
Right.
And this leads to an outward expression, like that critical social media post. Now, if we view this through the ZPF lens, the male leader's expression could be seen as projecting a certain kind of masculine creative energy, and the female leader's strong rejection, maybe a response from a contrasting feminine energy perspective that resists this particular form of creation. It illustrates a common pattern we call non-establishment of gender, which isn't about biology, right?
Right, not biology.
It's about a resistance to the integrated creative flow of the universe itself, as expressed through these fundamental energies. It's just a living example of how these deep concepts can actually distort the world we see.
That's such a crucial distinction. Understanding gender, not just biologically, but as these fundamental creative energies, and pulling back from this specific case. It feels like we can generalize to a broader principle, like
Hmm.
serious people, those who really value effort, correctness, their own moral frameworks, they often fall into these conceptual traps when their core beliefs get challenged. And the deeper the belief, the stronger the reaction, right?
Precisely. We call these sanctuary concepts. Think of them like powerful hidden boss monsters inside our personal operating system.
Boss monsters like that.
Yeah. And when these sanctuaries get touched, you might see a whole range of ego OS defense programs kick in. Things like defensiveness, criticism, suddenly changing the topic, or even this like lingering anger that pops up way later. But here's the paradox. These very reactions, they're also signs of a conceptual exit, a chance for an upgrade, a gateway to a deeper understanding. They're actually alerting you that there's an opportunity right there for a shift, if you can see it.
Okay, so the reaction itself is the clue.
Exactly. And we can see this pattern really clearly when we look at the Hermetic laws and the ego OS rejection curve. This framework helps us understand why certain concepts are just so much harder to integrate than others.
The Hermetic laws, okay.
So laws 1 to 3, mentalism, correspondence, and vibration. Everything is mind, as above, so below, everything vibrates. These are generally accepted pretty easily by the ego OS. They often feel exciting, empowering, like you're unlocking secrets. No big resistance there, usually.
Yeah, those feel kind of cool, expansive.
Right. But then, law 4, polarity. Here, the ego OS starts pushing back. The idea that evil has seeds of good really challenges those deeply held evil is evil beliefs. It activates what we call the justice OS.
Right, the need for clear good guys and bad guys.
You might feel a strong urge to judge, take sides.
Definitely.
Then, law 6, cause and effect. This is where strong resistance often pops up. The idea that action might not be the ultimate cause. Well, that directly challenges the belief that effort is life and hard work always pays off. Our ingrained effort value OS can feel really threatened by that. It makes us resist ideas, suggesting things might manifest without, direct hard effort.
Oof, yeah, that one hits close to home for many, I bet.
It does. And finally, law 7, gender. This often brings maximum resistance. Discussing creation's integrated structure, again, not just biological sex, but the underlying masculine and feminine creative principles of everything, well, that shakes traditional gender roles, identity, culturally ingrained beliefs right to their core. This is truly a sanctuary concept minefield for a lot of people.
Wow. That's a fascinating journey through those laws, seeing where the friction points are. But okay, how does our ZPF framework specifically categorize these challenging points? What extra insight does it offer beyond the Hermetic view?
Excellent question. So the Hermetic laws show us the universal principles, right? And then our ZPF framework helps us pinpoint the specific conceptual traps that pop up from resisting these laws. We call these ZPF's boss level concepts. First, good evil. This is where that justice OS gets triggered when faced with the idea that maybe evil has love within it in some sense. It's a Z transformation gateway because it asks you to integrate these opposing forces, to move beyond simple dualistic judgment to a more unified view of existence.
Okay, integrating the opposites.
Second, action cause effect. Here, the effort value OS gets triggered by the concept that not achieving is vibration, meaning your state of being, your frequency is the real cause, not just your frantic actions. It challenges that deep belief that struggle and hard work alone guarantee results.
Right, that your vibe matters more than just the hustle.
Precisely. And third, gender. This is where the role taboo concept OS gets triggered by the idea that sex is the structure of integration. Again, not just physical sex, but how those fundamental masculine feminine energies weave together to create everything. Our societal roles, our taboos around these energies, often the biggest sanctuary concepts we have.
Wow.
These are the true Z transformation gateways. And this isn't just theory, right? It's a practical framework. It helps you identify exactly where your internal programming is creating resistance, pinpointing those specific mental algorithms that need a rewrite for real transformation. It's where knowledge shifts from just information to actually being.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If adults struggle with this so much, what about kids? Because interestingly, if you look closely, even popular kid shows, they subtly transcend dualism sometimes. They often show complex antagonists or paths to integration. It's not always simple good versus evil where the bad guy is just pure evil.
That is exactly right. Children often intuitively grasp vibrational coherence. They see beyond simple good and evil much more easily. They have this natural Z-like eye, you could say. It lets them feel the deeper currents, the underlying energy.
Like knowing if someone feels safe.
Exactly. Like a child intuitively knowing if a person is trustworthy without processing all the logical data, they're sensing the frequency underneath. Our work here, in many ways, is about helping you recall that childhood Z consciousness,
Mhm.
that sense of feeling the background of existence, catching those underlying vibrations, remembering a world that's softer, full of gradients, where things aren't just black and white.
Okay, so if these concepts are so impactful and often so hidden, how can you actually start identifying these boss level concepts within yourself? Because, yeah, it's not always obvious, but when you do spot one,
Mhm.
it feels incredibly clarifying. It can be truly transformative.
Yeah, it really can be. A great place to start is by looking at what we call the 6 major Malkuth concept categories from a ZPF perspective. Malkuth, drawing from, ancient wisdom traditions like Kabbalah, represents the foundational layer of our perceived reality. It's where these core concepts really manifest and play out.
Okay, Melhuth, the foundation.
Exactly. So as I list these, just reflect, see which ones resonate, where you feel a little tug or recognize a familiar pattern in your own life. First, value concepts. Beliefs like I have no value, or I must be recognized to be worthy, or my worth depends on my results. Maybe I have to be special.
Right.
This is the root of that feeling of unworthiness, the constant need for external approval. Think about when you seek validation for just being you.
Hmm.
Second, safety anxiety concepts. These show up as beliefs like the future is dangerous, change is scary, I need money to be secure, stability is everything, or I have to sacrifice today for tomorrow.
Hmm.
This comes from that fundamental fear, the deep need to control outcomes. Think about when you cling to the familiar, even if it's not really fulfilling.
Yeah, I see that one.
Third, righteousness morality concepts. This is the justice OS running wild. I'm right, others are wrong, good must defeat evil, criminals must be punished, only moral people are correct. This is often fueled by dualism, by judgment. It creates a really rigid moral framework. When do you find yourself easily judging others or feeling morally superior?
Guilty. Okay.
Fourth, ability comparison concepts. Beliefs like, I am inferior to others, or maybe I'm superior to others, capable people are great, those who can't are worthless, or I must work harder just to catch up. This is tied to feelings of inferiority or maybe superiority as a cover, and that need for affirmation through achievement or comparison. When do you measure yourself against others?
Constantly. Sometimes.
Yeah. Fifth, sociocultural collective conditioning. These are those deeply embedded collective illusions we often just absorb without questioning. Things like, I must marry to be complete, I need a house to be successful, men must act this way, women must act that way. A high education brings stability, respect for hierarchy is absolute. These are the unexamined scripts society gives us. How many of your life goals are truly yours versus what you think you should want?
That's a big one.
And sixth, should-must concepts, duty. This ego OS pattern is driven by seeking external validation for survival, really. It often leads to feelings of suffocation.
Hmm.
Beliefs like no work, no food, success requires sacrifice, I must endure hardship, or I must always be polite even if it costs me. This is about pushing yourself because of external demands, not genuine internal desire. When do you feel obligated rather than inspired?
Feeling suffocated. Yeah.
So these categories, they illustrate how all concepts are fundamentally, biased meanings born from that dualistic field. They create the story spiral that moves us from separation through exploration and ultimately, hopefully, towards integration. They are, in a weird way, gifts. They propel our evolution.
That's incredibly clear. And I think, yeah, many of us can see ourselves in those categories. Let's bring this back to, like, practical, real-time experience. Because I definitely have my own journey spotting these in myself. Take a public figure I once admired, Horimon, the Japanese entrepreneur, known for being controversial, anti-establishment.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Initially, I really resonated with his whole anti-establishment thing. But then during the pandemic, his views on vaccines and later his rocket business getting government subsidies, that triggered a really strong negative reaction in me. It felt like a betrayal of the principles I thought he stood for.
Okay, yeah. And this is a classic resonance bug ignition observation Z integration process right there in action.
Recognition, okay.
Your ego OS felt a betrayal of structure it believed in. You had concepts like anti-big organization, maybe revenue must be from direct customer value, perhaps even a subtle bit of some jealousy watching his success.
Yeah, maybe a little jealousy, gotta admit.
But through pure observation, just watching your own reaction, you realized it was your concepts and emotions reacting, not some inherent wrongness in him necessarily. When you recognize those concepts in yourself, your ego OS quieted down, right? It wasn't about justifying him, but understanding your internal reaction.
Exactly. And now, when I see news about people suing him or whatever, I'm just, meh. It's not
Mm-hmm.
indifferent. It's not condoning anything. It's just my internal landscape shifted. The energy around it doesn't grab me anymore. It's not my problem.
That shift is absolutely key. And it's a powerful sign of integration. Strong reactions to others, they're often signs that your own concepts are rewritable, that there's a point of growth ready to be accessed right there. Observing that process, that determines your next rendering of reality. It lets you choose a different vibrational output. But, some might argue that resistance is just a natural part of grappling with uncomfortable truths, not just an ego OS defense. How would you tell the difference?
That's a really good point. For me, the difference feels like it's in the energy of the reaction. Is it empowering you,
Yeah.
leading you to act from clarity, or is it draining you with anger, judgment, anxiety? Like this happened recently with a listener comment, actually.
Yeah.
They pointed out my use of phrases like, you might not know, sounded, well, arrogant.
Hmm.
And my ego OS immediately wanted to jump in, defend my intentions,
Sure, natural reaction.
but I chose to just observe it instead. And it made me realize this polarity inside me, the desire to convey knowledge clearly versus the desire to be humble, and also the desire to be liked versus freedom of expression. Both desires felt valid.
Oh, that's a perfect example of what we call a polarity of love x love.
Love X love.
Yeah, both desires come from a place of care. Care for your listener, care for your authentic expression, the choice of whether to respond or how to respond. It isn't really about the action itself, it's about the vibration of that choice, a response of pure gratitude for the feedback, or maybe a quiet detachment from the vibration if it doesn't really serve you. Both are valid paths if they're aligned with your highest self. It's about not letting the reaction dictate your internal state.
Right. And it also highlighted some residual fear of being seen as unworthy or moving too fast compared to, longtime spiritual practitioners, stuff from past experiences.
Oh.
And even my old easy mode is boring concept, always picking the hardest path, like in a strategy game. That's integrating now too.
The hard mode concept.
Yeah. I'm realizing I can be just as creative, just as fulfilled, without constantly needing obstacles. The ego's need for struggle is really dissolving. It's quite freeing.
This is exactly where our ZPF protocol for concept bug handling comes in. These are practical tools for real-time debugging. Our ZPF framework, it draws inspiration from various places, including specific Eastern philosophical approaches, and uses these powerful short phrases to help navigate these moments.
Okay, practical tools. Let's hear them.
Right. So first, when your ego OS gets irritated or defensive, we suggest you whisper "kitakor" to yourself.
Kitakor.
Yeah, it's Japanese, roughly means "here it comes," or "ah, there it is." It instantly shifts you to metacognition. You observe the reaction instead of being swept away. So someone cuts you off in traffic, you feel that anger surge. A quick internal kitakor helps you notice the anger, not just be the anger.
Okay, kitakor. Got it. Like acknowledging the program running.
Exactly. Second, when you're about to judge someone or a situation, tell yourself, "Shiren no yama yana."
Shiren no yamayana.
What's that mean? It means something like, "This is a mountain of trials," or "what a trial this mountain is." It transforms judgment into a path of self-exploration. It reframes the wrongness outside as an opportunity for growth inside. So you see that public figure making choices you dislike. Instead of instant condemnation, Shirin no Yamayana invites you to look at your reaction and what it's revealing about your concepts.
Turning judgment into self-inquiry. I like that.
And third, when self-righteousness runs wild, call out, "Cecil Modatakure," or just, "Cecil, come back!"
Cecil. Who's Cecil?
Cecil is our internal Dark Knight archetype within the ZPF framework. That strong, sometimes overly zealous part of us that knows it's right.
The inner crusader.
Exactly. This phrase helps you recall that part, regain composure, embrace a more balanced view, find yourself in a heated argument, totally convinced you're 100% right. Saying, "Cecil, come back," is a playful way to bring yourself back to humility, back to openness.
Cecil, come back.
Okay. These short, powerful phrases, they're a non-aggressive, kind of non-serious way to redirect your consciousness. Debug those concepts in real time. Pull yourself back to that Z perspective.
These are genuinely actionable tools. It's really about moving from being like a victor of your reactions to being an observer.
Mm-hmm.
and then a conscious creator.
Ultimately, yes. The journey from the story of overcoming obstacles to the story of creation. That's what Z integration is all about. It's moving from a place where obstacles define your value, where you feel you need to prove yourself through struggle, to realizing that your inherent being is the source of all value in creation. You don't need to prove your worth through struggle. You already are worthy.
It's truly realizing that, yeah, you don't need external struggles to prove your worth or even just to feel alive. When you fully step into that Z perspective, the whole world shifts. From being a stage of suffering to a stage of blessing, it becomes a canvas. So what would you create if you knew there were no obstacles? If the universe was just there, waiting for you to express your pure creative joy?
And that really is the provocative thought we want to leave you with today. When you graduate from needing the narrative of struggle, the universe transforms. It becomes this infinite canvas for your pure creative joy. What will you paint on it?